So let's come and lay down. I'd like you to have a belt. So we'll come and lay on our mat with a belt. So let's place our feet onto the floor. Just going to clip my mics on here. Okay, so feet on the floor, knees bent, head to the floor, or you can take a little bit of support under your head if you would like support. And we'll just press our feet into the floor, lift the pelvis up, give it a little wiggle. So have a little wiggle across the hips, a little roll around. So we can just move around, feeling the tip of the tailbone, just moving around in these sort of random directions. And then we're going to lengthen out the lower back, reaching the pelvis towards the feet and placing it down to the floor, stepping the feet a little further forwards so we've got a little bit of space between the heels and the buttocks, and then we'll take our arms out nice and wide. Obviously we can adjust at any point we need to for our own body, so if taking your arms out like this isn't comfortable, you can adjust in any way that you need to. And then we'll just simply arrive. So to arrive means that we have to bring ourselves fully into presence here. So we start by turning our attention to the breath. So let's take some slower, deeper breaths here. Really giving to those breaths in any way that you're able to give to the breath. So we want awareness within the breath. So the breath is filled with awareness. Awareness is filled with the breath. We want a little softness in our breath. So a little freedom in the breath here. A little space in the breath here. We want to allow the belly to be soft. So although there might be a little bit of us that's sort of itching to get moving in our yoga practice, starting from a place of stillness is a great way to inform our practice, so that there can be a sort of internal stillness beneath our movements. So letting the body be relatively still here. It's never completely still, of course, while we're breathing, while we have blood being pumped around the body. There is always movement within the body while we're alive. But there is no sort of volitional movement here. So we find this stillness in the body, and it can orientate us towards an inner stillness. And then as we move, we can move from that internal stillness. So there can still be this part of us that remains steady. And we know this is a way we can practice yoga from the teachings of Patanjali, the author of the Yoga Sutra, who tells us Sthira Sukham Asanam. Our asana is steady and easeful, or still and happy, we could translate that as. So we can find a little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy in our practice as well by just simply coming into this steadiness and this stillness. And then as we start to move, which we're going to do now by drawing the right knee in towards the chest, giving a little push into the left foot to guide that knee in towards you. We're going to let that knee come out towards the right side of the body, towards the floor, and we're going to rotate it. So we can take a full rotation of this knee. This is an external rotation in the leg, so we can feel that we are opening and lengthening there through the inner thigh. But we can guide the rotation from the foot that's in contact with the floor. So we can push into that foot to get into this movement here. So as we guide the movement, which if we do without the addition of that foot, we'll be limited in how far we go. But the foot just gives us that little extra push and extension to move into that full rotation. You will lift through the pelvis a little as you do this. As you push through the left foot, you'll feel the left buttock lift off the floor, and that's fine. Okay, now let's bring that foot back to the floor. Let's take a moment to realign and to take a breath, to be patient with our practice. You know, it's not the more that we do in this practice, the more we get from it. Actually, often it's the less we do, the more we get from it. Okay, let's draw the left knee in towards the chest, and again we can guide that with the right foot. So pressing into the right foot, allowing that knee to rotate out in your own time. So I don't mind how quickly you move here, as long as it is breath centered and awareness centered. Sometimes we can hold our attention within a swifter movement. Sometimes if we move too fast, then we lose that same level of attention and engagement. So all it requires is for us to commit our attention to this. So this is something that we can call tapas, this commitment that we make in our practice, a commitment of attention within this. It's a sort of staying power of the mind within this practice. Okay, let's bring that foot back down to the floor. Realign the pelvis, take another slow deep breath, and then bring the feet in a little closer towards the buttocks. And again, we'll press into the feet and we'll play with a little movement in space of the pelvis, lifting up and down, swaying, rolling around, just feeling into that movement through the lower back, feeling into the shift of our weight towards the upper back. The back of the neck is soft and light, however, so we're definitely not flattening the neck to the floor, so we're sort of supported through the shoulders here. And then again, we'll bring the pelvis back down to the floor. We'll take a breath. We'll step the feet a little further forwards and then just tip the knees from side to side. So we can just gradually, again, loosen up through the belly, through the waist and lower back. And we can just let ourselves drop into the rhythm of this. So this is an action that we take quite frequently, or at least if you're in my class, I tend to teach this in most classes because it's such an easeful way to loosen the soft tissues around the band of the waist. Okay, the belly, the sides of the waist and the lower back. So if you're familiar with doing this relatively regularly, and maybe you do this in your own practice too, don't just sort of zone out. Let yourself zone in. So feel into the rhythmic flow of this in the same way that we might watch the rhythmic flow of the breath in a meditation or in our yoga asana practice. So just let yourself be carried into this. Okay, let's come back to the center. Now let's hug the knees into the chest, hold in front of the shins or hold behind the thighs, and have a little roll around, a little rock around, whatever it is you feel you need to do here. And we're then going to release the hold. We're going to bring our arms back out again. So elbows are around about shoulder height or a little higher. We're going to bring the feet up, but keep the knees bent. And then we're just going to take the knees wide. Okay, so we're at this wide ankle, like a happy baby pose where we would normally take hold of the feet or shins, but we're not going to take hold. And we're going to rotate our ankles here. So let's rotate our ankles. That's it. Just breathe into them and then rotate in the other direction. And then let's have a little shake out. So you can shake out through the shins. There we go. So you get a good shake at the ankles. The thighs are relatively stable in this. And then we'll shake out the legs. So just bring the legs in towards each other and just give them a full shake out themselves. That's it. Wonderful. Let's bounce the heels on the back of the buttocks now. So just a lifting and bouncing, breathing. Okay. And we can feel that this contact that we may make between the heels and buttocks, but we'll make contact at least between the calves and thighs. It's a little energy jolt into the body. We can feel this. So we can follow that little jolt of contact that we create here up through the body. It's like we are a little jump start of our body this morning. This early yoga class can help us to feel alive and awake. Okay, well done. Let's bring the feet to the floor. Take some deep breaths. Notice the release through the thighs, the pelvic floor, the groin area at the top of the thighs, the belly. Well done. Now let's take a little roll over onto our side. We'll push into the floor. We'll bring ourselves up from the side and we're going to come into a seated posture. So Sukhasana. So this is a cross-legged posture. We can have our shins approximately sort of lined up with each other rather than tucked back. So we've got a little bit of space here, but behind the calves. We can draw our buttock flesh out and back behind us to help us to sit upright, and then we can sit on a block if we feel collapsed. We can take some shin support if we need it, but we are going to move a leg in a moment. So if your shins are lifted, what you can do here, I haven't got a blanket right to hand at the moment, but you can pop a blanket underneath the shin of the back leg if you need that support, because what we're going to do is we're going to release that front leg and we're going to just pick that leg up for a moment and have a little play into the hips. So hold the knee, hold the foot, and again we can move around, so we're loosening up through the hip. We want to try and keep the body nice and upright in this, so breathe into it. Okay. Now here what we're going to do is just, if you can, come and rest the foot on the other leg wherever you can, whilst we take our hand and we're going to thread our fingers between the toes. Okay, so you've got your fingers between the toes and then hold the shin of that leg, and then let's go for a little rotation of the ankle with the fingers between the toes so they're nice and spread. We can loosen up through the ankle. Try not to slump into it, so stay nice and light through the chest. And then as we move and rotate here, so this sort of action can just drop us into a sort of functional action of the body where we're just moving the body here, we're moving the foot. You can stretch the foot through plantar and dorsiflexion, you can rotate the ankle. But let's remind ourselves that we're doing this for the purpose of yoga. So we can reflect on the purpose, the Artha Bhavana. This is the reflection of the purpose here. And that purpose is unity or integration. So as we play with this little bit of movement, stretching out the foot and the toes, we let it come from that inner place of stillness, where there's not a pull in any direction. So there is a unity there when everything becomes still. It is joined. Okay, well done. Now just hold your shin and give your foot a little shake out. Well done. Okay. Now let's bring that foot down. Let's change the cross of the legs. You might need to give the legs a little bit of movement before you do that. Maybe you need a little shimmy out of the body. We can have a little sassy shimmy. And then we'll cross the legs and we'll draw the buttock flesh out and back again. And then we're going to take that little rotation through the hips. Again, take any support that you need underneath this leg that's remaining against the floor, so you can prop it with a block or a blanket. And then pick up the leg, hold the leg there, and we'll just take this little bit of movement through the hips. So rocking, swaying, whatever works for you. And just play around into this. That's it. Breathe into this. And we can feel here that it is through this movement that it's like we're oiling our own joints here. And we are literally encouraging the flow of the synovial fluid around the joints through movement. So there is an actual hydration that happens here. There's a hydration that happens through movement of the connective tissue in the body, the fascia. So we are becoming, or we're tuning in to our fluid body here. Okay, well done. Now, again, we can just bring that foot down wherever we want to bring it, onto the leg or onto the floor. We can thread the fingers between the toes. So this can be quite challenging for some if you've got relatively narrow feet. Fortunately, decades of yoga have widened my toes, so it's relatively easy for me. But you can just thread the fingers a little if you need to, and then we can hold and we can rotate again. So we can hold the leg, we can rotate at the ankle, we can stretch, so moving between plantar flexion, that pointing of the toes, and dorsiflexion. You can really play into this in any way that you can move through the foot and ankle. And remind yourself that it's yoga. Okay, so don't just drop into the sort of mechanical action of this. Let it be absorbing. Okay, now let's hold the shin again and let's shake out the foot if we can. That's it. So just give the foot a good shake. If you hold the knee and you hold towards the ankle, you should be able to shake your foot relatively easily. Okay, well done. Now let's come back down just briefly to Sukhasana. Have a little movement through the body, a little roll around the pelvis, whatever you need to loosen up through the lower back to breathe. Fantastic. Okay, let's bring ourselves to our hands and knees now. So stretch out your legs, give them a pat down or rub down as you need to. Give the lower back a little rub as you need to. And then bring yourselves onto your hands and knees. Spread the fingers. Hands a little further forwards of the shoulders, and then take a moment to find the breath. Okay. And let's be really honest with this. So don't just sort of glimpse the breath. Find it and stay with it. So we're not ticking it off. Okay, I've seen the breath. What's next? We're finding the breath and we're really feeling into it. And then we can allow movement to come into the body whilst we have that breath awareness. Whilst we have that flow. And whilst we have that attention. So our practice starts to move into the more internal limbs of yoga. We start to practice dharana. This is focus. So that means that we are really giving our attention to this. And then we can slowly, in our own time, and let's be honest about that. I say in your own time, so you don't have to move at exactly the same time that I move. But we are going to lift this up into a downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So if you're content moving around on your hands and knees for a little longer, then stay there. And then when you're ready, you can lift yourselves up, press into the hands, reach up through the body, draw the top of the thighs back, have a little play from side to side, a little wiggle through the hips perhaps, a little bend of the knees. Deepen the hands into the floor to really rise up through the arms, to open the armpits. There is a dynamic, alive extension in downward facing dog. There's no part of us that's collapsing into this. So let's breathe through it. Let's feel what it offers us, this opportunity for a real sense of embodiment here. Wonderful. Okay, let's come down to the hands and knees again. And let's just continue to feel into any movement here. If you need to give the wrists a little rest, you can come down onto the forearms and turn your palms up. So that weight bearing can sometimes feel quite strong on the wrists, so you're welcome to drop down to this position. But it's good to take a little weight bearing, even when it feels strong. But it's also important that we listen to our body and know when enough is enough. Okay. We are going to come back up into a downward facing dog. So let's come back up to our hands and knees. Our hands shoulder width apart. We are positioning our hands, our knees and our feet an equal distance from the midline of the mat. So either side of that midline, we are positioned an equal distance from it. Okay, so we're centrally aligned. We're going to lift ourselves up. We're going to extend and we're going to breathe. And then we're going to take the hand. You're going to take your hand that is furthest from me. You're going to plunge it underneath the body towards the opposite leg. So your leg that's closest to me, that's if you're sideways onto the screen. If you're not, you can work this out. So crossing to the opposite leg and letting the body turn a little into this. So you reach to the outer thigh, to the outer shin, or to the outer ankle, depending on the reach of your arm. And you breathe, you push through the supporting arm. Take a deep breath. Okay, let's release. Let's bring that hand to the floor. You can look between your hands, check that alignment, have a little wiggle. Find the breath again and then plunge the other hand through. And again, let your body just turn. That's it. There's a rotation here. We breathe into it. We give to it. We keep pressing through that supporting arm. And obviously you can come back to downward facing dog when you need to, a regular version. Okay, let's come back. Let's take a breath or two here. Now, if you feel you need to have a little break, perhaps for the wrists or elbows or shoulders, just come down to your hands and knees for a moment. But if you feel like I can be here for another couple of minutes, then what we're going to do is we're going to raise up a leg now. So you're going to raise up the leg closest to the screen, lift and extend, push through both hands. Let that leg drop back, if that's comfortable to do so, towards the buttocks. So we can then reach up into the knee, hands deep into the floor, breathe into it. Keep feeding energy up through the body. Okay, well done. Let's bring that foot back down. Again, any little movements, little pedals out that you need. And then raise up the other leg. And again, there's a little rotation of the body. If you're comfortable to drop the foot back towards the buttocks, you can. And lift up into the knee. If that's not comfortable, don't worry. But breathe into that. If you are bending the knee, breathe into that extension through the quadriceps. Often neglected in yoga in favor of stretching our hamstrings. We kind of forget to extend through the front of the legs sometimes. So it's a useful action here. Okay, bring the foot down, bring the knees down. Take a breath and slowly come back to an upright seated kneeling position or an alternative posture if you need it. You are welcome to take support between buttocks and heels. We're just looking for a posture of ease here, an effortless sitting. And then in this effortless sitting, we can tune into release in the body. We can tune into the slow softening through the arms, the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, the joints of the fingers even. We can come back in our relatively still position here to that sense of the internal stillness that we tuned into at the beginning of our practice. And we can feel how all movement arises out of that. So within that stillness there is a little subtle spanda, a little pulsation or vibration. That's the little spark of inspiration that creates our movements, that creates our actions. So as we sit in this relative stillness, we can feel that we draw back to that little spark of inspiration, that little pulsation, that spanda. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves up to standing now, and you're going to bring a strap with you, which you may or may not need here. Okay, so we can stand sideways, we can stand facing towards the long edge of our yoga mat, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to fold it over, so we're going to make it a little bit more padded out. Now, not everyone is going to come down into the full version of this, or you might sort of step down into it in a slightly different way. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our feet in relatively close to each other. There's a little bit of space between the feet, and then here, this is where we might need our strap. We're going to raise one arm up and one arm down, and then we're going to bring the hands together. So we can do that with a strap, or we can do it by bringing the hands together. Now, I only want you to hold your hands if you can do so easily. If you're just about touching with the fingers, I want you to take a strap, because we're going to move further into this, so it will be more challenging to hold that. So it might be that you need a strap on one side but not the other. So let's bring one arm up, doesn't matter which one, and let's feel into the breath. Now we can feel into a little bit of movement here. First of all, we can sway, and actually what I want us to do is to just step back on our mat, so we have a little bit of mat ahead of us. So there would be the space for you to come to a kneeling position here on your mat. Okay, now we're going to sit ourselves down into an Utkatasana position here. So let's tone the belly. Let's stay lifted in the chest. Let's bend the knees, feel that hinge at the ankle joints and at the hip joints. The body starts to tip forwards. We're lifting into the top elbow. We're drawing down into the bottom elbow. We might be having a little bounce here to sort of sustain this posture. We can have a little side to side wiggle. We can take a deeper breath. Okay, now this isn't for everyone. If you've got dodgy knees or difficulty in the hips, you might not be able to come down so low, so we can go a little lower. We can breathe. And then we're going to go lower still. So we're going to let our heels lift and see if we can come into a squat-like position. So there's a bit of balance here. Now, For some of you, you will need to sort of step into this one leg at a time, and that's fine. But for some of you, you may be able to, as slowly as you can, bring your knees forwards and then bring yourselves up to an upright kneeling position when we're there. So you can step into that if you need to, slowly step into it. And then when we're there, we'll take the toes back. We're going to tone the belly. So it's like a little variation of an Ustrasana, a camel pose. So we've got this bottom hand here, even if you've got the belt between your hands, that's going to come towards the mid-thoracic spine. And we can even allow a little fulcrum over that hand. So the hand can lightly push into the back of the rib cage there, but the chest needs to lift up and over. So we tone the belly, we lift the chest, we lift into that top elbow, we breathe. We're not going to go back as far as we would normally go back in this posture, of course, because we want to keep some control there through the lower back. The breath is flowing. Okay, now let's ease off that arched position. We can either, you will probably need to lift one knee at a time to come back. We're going to see if we can work our way back up again. So sit back. If you lift one knee and then lift the other, you should be able to get back up into that squat position, or move up in any way you can if you need a little extra assistance for your knees. Come back, let the heels lower down, so we're through our Utkatasana position. And then push into the feet and inhale and come up. And then very slowly release the arms. That's it. Give them a little bit of movement. Maybe a little sway, maybe a little bounce out and wiggle out through the body. So get a little bit of flow into the lower back if you need to. Find your breath. Take a moment in Tadasana. So externally rotate the arms, palms face forwards or towards forwards. Breath flows. Feel the body settle from that action. Okay, so we're going to raise the other arm up, and again, so you know which arm you had up last time. And again, take a strap if you need to. I need to on this side, so we're going to take a strap. We're going to make sure we've got that mat length in front of us. We're going to have a little bit of space between the feet. We're going to lift up into that top elbow. We're going to tone the belly. We're going to lift the chest. And then again, our Utkatasana position. So it's like a high squat position, but we keep the natural curvature of the spine. We lift into this top elbow. We breathe, and we can have a little play, a little bounce here. And then again, with breath, with a steadiness, with patience, we can perhaps sit a little lower, so the body might tip a little more. And then lower still, which will mean you will probably have to lift your heels, but we're going to have to lift our heels anyway to move to the next stage. So we sit back on our haunches here. And then either one leg at a time, or you can step through it or slowly bring the knees forwards. But if you need to step slowly, you can bring one knee down and step like that. And then we can take the feet back. We're lifting up, we're toning the belly, we're lifting the chest. And then again, with this bottom hand here, we can play with a little pushing forwards, but we want to get lift at the same time. So we can allow the spine to almost fulcrum over that hand. It's very subtle. It's not forceful. Reach into the top elbow, breathe, keep toning the belly so we feed that lift into the chest. Let the breath flow. Okay, wonderful. Let's bring ourselves back to the more upright position. Tuck the toes. Again, draw back towards the heels. You can lift your knees one knee at a time. There can be a little balance here. Find the breath. Slowly come back up through our Utkatasana position. And then pushing into the feet and coming all the way up. And slowly releasing the arms. Releasing your belt if you have one. Give the arms a little movement, maybe a little sway. And then maybe a little movement through the body, a little bounce out, a little wiggle out. And we'll just stand in Tadasana where we are. We can do this with the feet hip width apart or the feet in towards each other. If there is any residual sensation in the lower back, I recommend hip width apart for the feet. And then broaden across the collarbones. But we can feel that broadening coming up through the center of the body. Let's take a moment to tune into the Sushumna, our central energetic channel, through the midline of the body from the pelvic floor. It's like a channel, a conduit through which we experience flow. So we can even visualize this as being like a pipe through which water can flow. But here we're looking for the flow to rise up through the center, to rise up through the crown of the head, to merge with the universe. How's the breath? Is it settled? Is it settling? Okay, one more little variation of Utkatasana, which we'll do with our feet in towards each other, but of course you can give yourselves more space if you need it. We're going to come into a little twist variation. So we're going to, first of all, just sit down into the squat, the high squat-like position. And then let's take a little turn towards the right. So raise up the left arm. Let's extend that arm up so that extends the side of the body here to give us reach around. We keep tone in the belly, and then we're going to bend the elbow and we're going to hook the elbow either onto the outer thigh there of the opposite leg, or if that's too much, you can bring it onto the inner thigh of the same leg on the same side as that arm. Okay, and then we press, take one hand on top of the other. We can press into the hand, but rather than pressing into the hand to guide the body into a deeper twist, press into the hand to guide the body into more length. So use that little extra energy to lengthen, and don't be forceful with this. Your body won't thank you if you are forceful in these twist positions. So it's just a little gentle nudging energy to bring length to the body here. Find the breath. Okay, well done. Now let's bring ourselves back to the center. We're going to place our hands on our thighs. We're going to extend the arms, but we're going to stay in this kneeling position. We can have a little wiggle out across the hips, just to loosen up through the groin area. And then again, let's raise up the opposite arm. Let's reach up and feel that reach from the hip. And let's take that turn to the other side. Again, either hooking around the outer thigh or to the inner thigh of the same leg. And then again, this contact between the hands feeds length into the body. Keep the breath fluid, steady. Wonderful. Let's bring ourselves back to the center. Place your hands on your thighs, extend the arms. Have a little wiggle, have a little bounce out. Press into the feet, come all the way up, step your feet apart, and again, a little shake out, a little wiggle, a little bounce, whatever it is you need here. That's it, you can really really go for it here. Okay, well done. Let yourself drop into stillness. And then it's from here, we're going to transition to Shavasana. So we can come back down to the floor, open up your mat. Before you come into your Shavasana, you're welcome to move your body in any way you feel you need to move your body on your back. So a little hug of the knees into the chest if you need it. A little drop of the knees from side to side like we did earlier with our arms out. And then just simply let yourself drop in. So as always, when we lay in Shavasana, we don't want the arms against the body. There should be no contact between the upper arms and the body, or no firm contact there. So the arms are either a little away from the body with the palms up. That's an external rotation of the arms, which draws the shoulder blades down and broadens the collarbones. Or we can rest our hands on our torso, but we can give ourselves that little bit of space. Okay, so on the rib cage, on the belly, on the chest. Head can be supported if you wish, or if your head tips back, you should take support. Legs are completely extended, or we can take support behind the knees. You can practice with your knees bent and the feet on the floor without support, but within that position there is a little subtle effort that's required. So ideally, a bolster or some pillows behind your knees allows you to just completely relax. So if you need that support, then take it. Then our eyes close. And that closure of the eyelids, and you can even notice the difference if you want to try opening your eyes. Notice how our attention is pulled into the space around us. And then closing your eyes, just notice that difference, how immediately we are pulled in. So the simple act of closing our eyes inspires pratyahara, this withdrawal of the senses. So we withdraw the senses into us. They're not being switched off. They're simply turning inwards. So let's feel into the breath, the softness of the internal experience of the breath. We can feel that physical movement of the body with the breath. Perhaps so we can also tune into the internal experience of each breath, what's inside each breath, the prana element, the life force element. Each exhalation guides a little deeper release. Now I advise those of you who have the luxury of time to just continue for, another 5 or 10 minutes if you have it in Shavasana, because there is a real richness to a longer stay in Shavasana. But if you are restricted by time, it is now time for us to come out of the pose. So you may bend your knees and place your feet to the floor, adjusting your pelvis. If you've got support behind the knees, just give it a little nudge forwards with your feet to place your feet behind it. That is if you are coming out of Shavasana now. If you're remaining, obviously remain. If you are happy to roll, in fact, you can all roll onto the right side of your body to start with. And some of you may just stay there. Some of you who are happy to roll to both sides of the body may then roll over onto the left side of the body too now. And then you can slowly in your own time, if you're coming out of the posture, bring yourselves up. There might be little movements we bring to the body or even quite big stretches. Sometimes we feel the urge to stretch out our limbs, to take a deeper breath, and then bring yourselves up from your side. Come and sit in a comfortable seated posture. We can bring our hands to the heart center. And we'll close with a single Om. So, eyes closed. Let's take a deep breath in. Om. Thank you all very much. Namaste, Namovaha. Reverence to you all. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you all very soon.